when you stand up and get ready to take a blow, you have the confidence that you can accept the blow.
As a point of interest, none of my men wear protection in the groin. None.
After all, you wouldn't want your attacker to get injured.
That hurt my foot.
Well, I think it's a lot of credit to the players. They've been working really hard since day one. They have committed on achieve the goals that we set at the beginning of the season. They put every effort to believe in the way that we want to play, the way we want to attack, the way we want to defend. And this made that this season was a really good season for the club.
How do you feel?
Oh man, I'm so happy. I mean, it was. I had a chance. I had a couple of chances during the, almost one in every game, and it makes this one a little bit more sweeter, because you work time and time again. This week particularly, the guys have been so helpful and supportive in a way, because all week I've been doing extra just to, my shooting, my finishing, getting in the box, and I think today I was a little bit sharper. And I think sometimes you get lucky, you put yourself in the best position, and deflections or whatever, but you still got to go and do it. So I'm really happy about it.
Hey! Oh. Here we are. We are live. Welcome, everyone, to Big D After Dark. Right now, it's just Jose and I. We might have a couple of other voices join us as we get going here on the show. But we have reason to celebrate. We have reason to look with excitement for this next week, because FC Dallas is in the postseason, and they have a playoff match at home after taking care of Sporting Kansas City 2-1 in Frisco. Great atmosphere, looked like a great game. I hope you caught some of the pregame. Despite we had some technical glitches, but despite that, if you checked it out, if not, you can find the link on BigDSoccer.com in my latest After Dark article. But it's good to see you all here tonight. Please know you can share your comments, your questions with us. They will shape the show. We'll throw them up here on the screen. You just heard from Nico Estevez, our head coach, talking about the goals that this team has had and what it's meant for the team to achieve those goals. And then also Sebastian Letget getting his first FC Dallas goal. With me there, next to me is my buddy Jose El Chico Carmona.
What's up, everybody?
You can follow him at El Chico Carmona. You can follow me. I'm Nathan Hill at Nathan J. Hill. Let's get to talking, Jose. Even if it's just you and me, and of course, folks, you can subscribe to the pod audio version wherever you find podcasts. But we're just going to talk. We're going to talk about this past weekend. We're going to talk about North Texas SC, and then we'll talk about FC Dallas's playoff opponent, Minnesota United FC. So let's get into it. Let's just start with post-game reactions, right? We talked in the pregame. We talked about some scenarios. Some of the results were working in FC Dallas's favor. Not all completely, but you like it when the team takes care of business at home. And we saw we talked about this in the pregame show yesterday, that, hey, the first time we're seeing the first choice defensive lineup in a month for FC Dallas. And while not a perfect performance, they let in a goal by Graham Zusi, pretty sloppy thing. They did their job. And you saw some rotation too, which I think just keeps guys healthy and makes selection lineups challenging for Nico. So How did we do defensively, Jose? Are you feeling okay about this team's defensive status going into the playoffs?
Yeah, I'm pretty happy with the defense. I mean, um, we were really unfortunate not to be up more than by more than one goal. Really unfortunate not to be up, by more than one goal at the time that that goal was conceded. And you got to credit our opponents because they made adjustments and they found a way to attack the defensive formation that Dallas had set up, and that happens. So the main thing is we want to see is how does Nico adjust, and you have to say, I mean, other than the Nanu uh, substitution, which was forced on him, by the way, seeing him go to his bench, bring in Tafari, Quinion, and Velasco, that was like perfect substitution right there. I mean, those three guys came in and basically changed the direction the game was going, and basically asserted FC Dallas control once again, and that was beautiful. That's what basically Nico has been leading up to by playing all these reserves and all these matches, all this rotation, some of it forced, some of it not, and saying, hey, I need to get my other guys in form, because this is what happens, in a game like this where the tide has turned in our opponent's favor. You need to be able to go to the bench, bring in not one, not two, but multiple difference makers. And he did. He brought Quinion, solidified the middle a little, which was really shaky there at the time of the substitutions. Tafari came in for Hedges with no drop off whatsoever, which is wonderful to see. And Velasco was an instant difference maker, which is what he was. Honestly, that's what he was advertised as when he was first brought into Dallas, and now we're seeing it. Now we're seeing the guy that you're like, wow, I cannot believe we have a guy like that on our roster who comes in with all this hype, and you see it on the field. I mean, some of the stuff he did was just nasty. Even when he didn't, even when he wasn't dangerous in the attack, he was still doing some stuff that you were just mesmerized with, and you're like, wow, this kid's put it all together, and it's a very exciting time to be heading into the playoffs with a home match.
It's good stuff. Hey, Ben, thanks for commenting. Great call of a 2-1 win for FC Dallas. Sporting Kansas City had been playing well. I think we expected them. If they had, even with the third string goalkeeper, I think one thing you can note about head coach Peter Vermes of Sporting Kansas City is that he makes clear his expectations, and if you don't meet that, he's going to get rid of you. He's going to find a way to, and he's kind of earned that with some success over the years. So even with the third string keeper, the team was clear they had an expectation to come out there and to play a competitive game, and it was good for FC Dallas, I think, to have that test, have to find a way to look to the bench and to get the win, and I think playoff game's going to be on a Monday night. So Ben, glad you got your ticket. I know there's some concern about that. We may touch upon that in a little bit, but I'm with you. Like this Alan Velasco bit, Jose. We have had some good players for FC Dallas over the years, and sometimes some guys who have bordered on really special. I mean, Mauro Diaz, David Ferreira, guys who could just do really remarkable things in a moment. But even those two guys, I think they also had moments of injury. They had moments of where you wanted a little bit more, maybe. I don't want to push that too far, but yet this Alan Velasco kid, he comes in and just changes the game. He just absolutely brings something that just devastates Sporting Kansas City. They couldn't handle him.
They had no response for him.
None. And he's unlucky not to have had a goal. I mean, he had that shot off the crossbar. I mean, it's just...
Yeah, but you could argue that he got a little greedy there, and if he would have made that pass, Ferrer was wide open for that goal he so desperately wanted. But at the same time, we saw in this match that Kansas City was really good at stopping that extra pass. So I think Velasco was basically got aware to that. So hey, we try to make that extra pass, and they seem to anticipate it. They seem to cut it out. That that dummy move that Velasco, is that the first dummy we've seen Velasco do? I mean, it was great, but the defender snuffed it out.
Right,
So yes,
right. I think that's a good point. It's a good point, and so that's some awareness. And you know, for Hyder Obrian, who I don't think was awful in this game, I think he generated some momentum going forward, some positivity. He helped spearhead the attack early on. I think we know that he's just not. He doesn't have the soccer IQ per se that a
no,
guy like Velasco has.
but I think we're starting to see that Obrian, against certain opponents, he can create his own kind of havoc. He did. It wasn't against Sporting Kansas City, but we've seen him in the past. We've seen him, his speed. It's you can't just say, well, just the guy is fast, but at the same time, you have to be able to deal with that speed. So he's a good guy to have if you're going to be playing like Route One or something like that. You know, that's the kind of guy you want. Someone that's going to beat his defender to the corner and maybe make something happen. So yeah, I mean, everyone knows what he is. So
Yeah.
Dallas, I think going to playoffs, be a great guy to bring in against tired legs.
Kuv here. I hoped he was able to jump on with us. Tommy's not able to join us tonight, but Kuv here commenting the least amount of goals conceded in the West too, which I think is an underrated stat going into the playoffs because, well, I mean, I don't know. I haven't crunched the numbers, but from what I know of watching playoff matches, it's tight, intense soccer, and teams aren't scoring 5 goals on you. It's 1-0, 2-1 kinds of matches, and so it's a good place for FC Dallas to be, and kind of an underrated place.
And I think we only had one bad loss all year where we said, wow, we got allowed more than 2 goals. And so the defense was pretty consistent. And honestly, if you eliminate the PKs, it would have been less because think of all the PKs that went against FC Dallas. And if you look at the goals allowed from run of play, it's much better than it looks, in all honesty. I want to say, though, that oh, geez, I just had a brain fart. But no, I mean, I think the defense has been consistent. And considering the rotation that we've been seeing at defense, I mean, the only consistent player on that backline has been Farfan. Farfan has been, I think, of the field players, not including Pass, he's been the guy with the most minutes. But other than that, we've had injuries to Hedges, Martinez, and then you had the fight between Tuamasi and Nanu for that right back spot. So, and of course, Cirillo and Quignon battling out for the D mid spot. And so the fact that after all that, you still end up with the best defense in the West, I mean, that's great going forward. I mean, that's good news for this team. Because let's face it, it's defense that's going to win you the games in the playoffs. Defense carries you far. It's you don't see the high scoring teams usually go. I think the last high scoring team we had that won it was Atlanta, I think, where we're like, yeah, that's a great attack, but usually it's that stinker between Toronto and Seattle. That's closer to the norm.
Absolutely. I mean, teams can play a little cautious in the playoffs. Cautious may not be right, but they don't want to make the mistake, and so
yeah. I mean, it is cautious, not aggressive. I mean, they're going to basically try to make you pay, make that one mistake and pay, and it's back when I first was watching the World Cup, I used to nothing against Italy, but I hated watching the Azzurri play because you knew once they scored a goal, they were just going to lock up the defense and the game was over. And if they scored in the 10th minute, it was like, oh man, it's like I might as well just turn this game off because this game's going to be 1-0. Unless the other team makes a horrendous mistake. And that's what teams try to do. In the playoffs, you go up 1-0, some of these teams they'll say, okay, that's it. Let's shut it down. And if they give us a counter and we can score from stake, great. If not, we're more than happy to go 1-0. And so it can lead to some pretty dreadful matches for certain teams. But I think a team like Dallas, I think it's going to be fun postseason.
And here's my shout out to, and I think Kuv highlighted it. He said, you can see Jesus wanting Paul to dummy the ball on his goal to Jesus. For the record, Jesus was really hungry. I think he had an assist yesterday.
He did.
And he wanted to get that 19th goal. It didn't come, though he certainly had some opportunities. Credit to some goalkeeping. But even though Jesus didn't score, I just got to give credit to the guy for just an incredible performance. Very active, leading the line, creating space that made goals possible for his teammates. It just, even his hesitation sometimes to slow up his run rather than just dive right into the box, I think it makes defenders have to pause and make a decision. Do I follow Areola in his run? Do I follow Velasco? Do I mark Jesus? And that creates space, it creates havoc. I think it's an exciting, even though he didn't score, I think he's in really good form to go into the playoffs.
Yeah, and I just want to say that I think you could see that Kansas City had keyed on him too, and they were like, look, we don't care who scores, we're not going to have that guy break the record on us. And maybe if Jesus wanted to, he could have had more than one assist. I mean, I think Kansas City was basically saying, hey, don't let that guy score at any cost. And this is why it's great to see Areola scoring, Leggett scoring, Velasco, causing havoc over on the left. Honestly, you want to see our attack flow, and that's what we saw. And like I said,
right.
we're unlucky to not have scored more than 2 goals because that attack was flowing, especially early in the first half. And the offsides against Paul. I mean, Jesus, that was so close. I'm just saying and of course Velasco hitting the crossbar. So I mean, this could have been a bigger win than 2-1, but we'll take it. It was still a good performance. I think the only complaint was the goal being allowed, and you got to wonder if Farfan doesn't go out if that goal happens at all, because Ishmael would say, Nanu, he cost.
Yeah.
I just saying that's you got to wonder.
Yeah, and I like too that the coaching staff had the freedom and permission to, pull Farfan to give Hedges some minutes off, that they knew that this was a game that you could balance all of that. Because I think a draw probably would have been good enough for them to lock down the home playoff spot, but yet
it would have, but still,
yeah, it feels better to get that win.
You want the W. You want to go emphatically into the postseason, and I want to add that on that 3-man substitution, that with Velasco, Tafari, and Quignon, the success that Kansas City was having was once of course Nanu came in on the left side, and it's just that because of Nanu's play style, suddenly Cirillo and Nanu didn't work well together. So for Nico to recognize and say, hey, because we need Tafari out there, we need a little more quickness, a little more agility out there, and we need Quignon because we need someone who's to stay back and basically make up for the fact that Nanu's going to be going forward far more than Farfan, and his defensive reaction isn't as good as Farfan. So that's why you needed to make those changes in the back, and when you saw it, you're like, hey, yeah, this could work. And it wasn't perfect, but it did actually shore it up some, sufficiently that I think we felt better about defense once those substitutions were made. So
yeah, I agree. And I thought Quignon looked spry. He looked younger. I mean, he looked just.
He's 28. I mean, he's
only 28. I know, but
he's not an old guy. I mean, we treat him like he's an old guy because on FC Dallas he's an old guy, but he's technically a guy who's in his prime. And part of me says, they won't keep him next year, but maybe they will. I mean, why not? He does provide uh, a solid option uh, at defensive midfield. So and we were saying, I think we were saying in the previous podcast that hey, we can't have all these high priced players. Why not? All the other teams do. LAFC's got a crap ton of high priced players.
Right.
Why not FC Dallas? Why not have a stacked lineup, which is really a possibility next season?
Yeah. Well, those questions hopefully we'll get to much later because
much later. Yeah, I don't want to get too far.
Monday night things are really set up for FC Dallas to do well against Minnesota, a team that they have done well against this season, a team that they should have the number, a team that hasn't been playing super well, but yet will be a challenge. I mean, you can't you got to bring your A game. That's for sure.
I believe their record coming into the playoffs, I think they were it's either it was in their last 7 matches, 1 win, 1 draw, 5 losses, including a 3-0 loss against FC Dallas. And wasn't that in Minnesota too?
That was an away match. Yes, that was an away match. It was one of those things that Nico's gotten out of this squad.
Exactly. So yeah, and probably FC Dallas' biggest, one of their biggest wins on the road. LAG being the other game I could think of where we were like, wow, that was an amazing win. But yeah, one of the 2 biggest wins of the season on the road. So I think a team that we think FC Dallas matches up very well against, and we're certainly we like our chances. I think we're very excited at the possibility of getting a W against these guys.
Of course, anything can happen. It can end up being a gritty draw.
It's the playoffs. I mean, Minnesota.
Who knows? But I agree too. I think this is of the options. This is the team you might prefer to deal with right off the bat. But FC Dallas can't take this week off and look ahead. And I think they are. They're going to work hard at what's to come. Let's go ahead and take a quick moment here and let's let's hear a little bit of Pax's post-game comments here.
First off, congrats.
Thank you.
Place. After last year and a disappointing year for everybody, this year finishing third, the best finish since 2016. How has Nico, really turned things around?
Yeah, I think he's from day one we set goals and not just unrealistic goals. These were goals that we thought that we could definitely achieve as a team, and but nonetheless they weren't easy, and they weren't like cakewalk, like for sure goals that we were going to get. But the resilience of this team is just incredible from Nico all the way down. Like everybody played a part in this. And I'm so proud of the group for the effort that we've put in this year to put ourselves in the position we're in.
Home playoff game, first time in a while. How important is it, that home field advantage, and how do you see Minnesota coming here?
Yeah, I mean, you see it in the results. Teams are better at home, and including us, because obviously we have our fans to back us, and it's vital, and we couldn't be happier that we get to play a game in front of our fans for the first time in playoffs in a while. Thank you.
Good energy there from Paxton, but hearing the team set goals that he felt like were realistic, but definitely the change of Nico's leadership, the front office decisions as well to bring in a guy like Velasco to trade for a guy like Sebastian Leggett, who, by the way, his former team, New England Revolution, not in the playoffs. And
Did they not make it?
No, they unfortunately were just outside of the bubble. But also Paul Arriola, whose former team, DC United, not in the playoffs either. Not in the playoffs.
Two players that asked to come to Dallas. So that's I think that's the change. That's something that we complained in the past about, how FC Dallas wasn't bringing in players from other MLS teams. In fact, I think, if I'm correct, last year, I believe Dallas was the only team that did not have a player from another MLS that had played on another MLS squad. I mean, they had El Metcalf, but he never actually played for the Union.
Right.
You know, but they were the only. I think they last season they were the only team that did not have a single MLS player or player that played in other MLS team prior to Dallas, and we were saying, there's got to be guys that can bring in from within MLS that can, and mind you, when we say that, I was talking about guys that could come off the bench and give you minutes, but they took that and said, we can find difference makers within MLS, and that's true too. And they went out and they got two guys that have delivered. I mean, emphatically, mind you.
Mm-hmm.
We got a guy that's a U.S. men's national team regular, and one guy that's basically just on the outskirts of the U.S. men's national team, and that's sensational.
And a guy too who who is also well connected in the entertainment sports world. Yeah, that's right.
So too, I mean, if you think about it, because doesn't Paz's girlfriend also have like a massive following also?
Yeah, and I haven't really looked up her or her following, but yeah, a model. That's right. Well, good stuff. Yeah. But by the way, today's pod is brought to you by the Major League Soccer playoffs. Unfortunately, that means this podcast is unavailable in the Pacific Northwest. Unfortunately.
Oh,
that's right. It's you cannot access it in the Pacific Northwest, so please enjoy. Except if you're in the Pacific Northwest.
Cricket's coming from that part of the country.
Yeah. Yeah, kind of unusual, since that has been we've had to endure a lot, and FC Dallas over the past 3 years has had to take their talents up that way. But hey, what a wild season, and I think it's one of the selling points of Major League Soccer for me is that a team like FC Dallas, who can miss the playoffs a year before and have one of the better, like a leapfrogging, improvements year on year. I think it was 16 points or something like that.
Isn't something like only 2 teams that were in the playoffs last year returned to the playoffs this year? I mean,
right.
And
Minnesota and RSL. Yeah, I think so. I think I read that today. Yeah, it's wild.
And here's the funny thing though is even though they didn't make the playoffs, which we were very happy with, Houston actually made an improvement from last year. They just did not improve at the rate that the teams around them did, So yeah, I mean teams can make improvements. Dallas and Austin both, I think, the 2 biggest turnarounds in the West.
Well, all right. Before we get ahead, let's go ahead and talk about the big news from North Texas, and this is one where Jose and I can get in the weeds on. I was hoping to hear from our buddy Jack McLean, who's covering North Texas for Big D Soccer, but didn't hear from him yet. The news out on September 30th after North Texas lost to St. Louis FC, who lost to Columbus Crew too.
Which I called, by the way.
Good call. And by the way, they didn't just lose.
They got destroyed.
They got destroyed by Columbus 4-1.
But I don't know if you guys recall, but I said it was Columbus Crew were the favorites in the final, not St. Louis, even though I had been hyping up St. Louis. And it's because the Crew put together a top tier 3rd division squad. That's what they did. They basically where St. Louis put together more of they kind of put like a USL championship level squad, that was basically part MLS guys, part D3 guys. But Columbus Crew actually went out and they got guys that were from USL League One or had played in the USL Championship or Canadian Premier League, and these guys were all basically tuned into what it took to be play at this level, and it was just a matter of gelling them and no injuries, no they just steamrolled the East, and once you knew they were going to host, it was like, oh yeah, they were pretty much unbeatable at home.
Well, North Texas lost in that first round match, and then Third Degree has reported in their podcast. Recommend you check that out. Just that there were reasons that Coach Pa and FC Dallas agreed, North Texas agreed to part ways. because of perhaps player complaints and just compatibility issues. It doesn't sound like it's something that's going to rise to like a league investigation level or anything like that. But Kah was a little more of the Schellas Heinemann mold, which you saw if you watch the very beginning of the show. It's where Schellas Heinemann clip where he gets kicked in the nuts by former Dallas Cowboy player. Yeah, a guy who's like, demands a lot. And if you're in his doghouse, you're in his doghouse. Like there's not going to be there's not going to be a little gray area. It's like he likes you or he doesn't like you. And I will say this from interacting with Coach Kah over the season, that I saw his enthusiasm. I saw his appreciation for the sport. I saw his gratitude just to be able to coach and his belief in his players. But that doesn't mean that a coach also doesn't, if you mess up, if you cost your team a tie, a draw, or 3 points, or if you don't meet that coach's expectations, those coaches can also probably be your worst enemy. So I think it's definitely a both and reality. I'm not trying to pretend that.
What we're talking about here though is again, you got to give props to Boston Third Degree for their insight on this. Is they're talking about, it wasn't even that kind of stuff. It was more like being late for meetings or simple stuff like that, and he would come down hard on people. And in hindsight, now let me tell you about. We saw the playoffs. You saw how close the standings were, and you had North Texas ended up having to go to St. Louis. But let me tell you, if North Texas would have hosted either St. Louis or Tacoma, they're the team playing in the title game, because the only team that had their number this offseason was the Dynamo. I mean, during the regular season was the Dynamo too, who were basically set up to play perfect defense. They were like a USL League One type setup. But anyway, had North Texas hosted either of those other two teams, they're the ones that make it to the final. And the fact that some key players, and we're talking key players, did not see extensive playing time due to stuff happening behind the scene, and we're talking about your best midfielder in Ferry. He was inactive for a couple of weeks, or even if he was active, he was on the bench and not starting. This is a guy that, I mean, was just head and shoulders above everybody else. Waldick, another guy. I mean, your only true defensive midfielder, and that guy couldn't even see the field, and that was something that was odd as the season progressed. You're like, oh, I mean, I'm a positive guy. I'm a glass half full guy, so I'm like, oh, he must be, they must be simply wanting to get an extended look at Santi Ferreira and some of these other young guys, which made sense. But at the same time, when you're playing teams like the Dynamo 2 or Tacoma or St. Louis, and you're starting academy kids, and Waldick isn't playing, Ferry isn't playing, and other players, Bartlett, I believe, was another player that would have gotten more playing time. Mind you, Ferry was on the cusp of making a jump to senior roster. Bartlett's a guy that the team wants to get as much playing time at that level as he can, so they can then make an assessment. And if that's not happening, that's hurting not just North Texas, it is hurting the senior team too. And I don't, I can only go by what Third Degree has reported. But the truth is the one thing that stood out to me, the one thing that was clear is that regardless of his style or his relationship with the players in North Texas, apparently Coach Kah did not get along with Nico, and was even reluctant to follow instructions given to him from the senior squad. There's one story where a player, the senior team asked him to rest one of the players, and that didn't happen. And you can't have that. I'm sorry. I mean, I don't know if anything in the back is true, but if you are the manager of the reserve team, you have to be in lockstep with the senior team manager. And if you can't do that, then I don't care how wonderful of a guy you are and how many people love you. You cannot be the reserve coach. You got to be a guy who sees what Nico sees and says, okay, and takes his suggestions to heart and says, okay, because these kids' ultimate goal is to go play for Nico. And so you have to be in lockstep with the wishes of the senior team. And if that's not happening, and that's what the biggest thing I got out of it, is that simply Nico and Kah did not get along. And Nico has basically hinted about having a bigger hand with the reserve team next season, which this season he wasn't. He was focused on the senior team. So all that says is Nico's going to bring in this guy. And if he doesn't bring in this guy, he's going to have a say on who that guy is that's brought in. Because, like I said, you're the reserve team. You're not an independent club. You got to answer to the man on top, and that would be the manager of the senior team.
I mean, I think the FC Dallas organization would like North Texas to win some trophies, to be successful, to build up its reputation. But, yeah, but I think your point is right. It also has to fit within this existing organization and serve its purpose, which, trophies will be great and welcome, and certainly that's the expectation, but also to get guys ready, to be a tool to improve the senior squad. And now, so at least with Coach Kah, we have some waiting to do, because we might hear, the official announcement about Mulatto. There's been rumors that FC Dallas purchased his contract, whether that's still with North Texas or what. We'll wait. I think there'll be an official announcement at some point. But Kamungo is one of those stories, and I think so I at least add something for Kah to say, look, this is what I was part of. But you're right. This was a bit of a different year as North Texas adjusted to MLS.
It was a transition year. A transition year. And I also got to add that behind the scenes, again, I got to give props to Third Degree, who does great coverage of the academy. But I also have other people that I follow that cover the academies extensively. And the word is that, we talked about the opening of the territories to some extent. FC Dallas went out and they brought in a lot of talent. We're not talking at one age level. They brought in talent across the board. We're talking like 30 plus kids spread throughout the different ages, through the ECNL squads, and now we're starting to see that the actual overall talent of the squads has actually gone up, and because of that, the rumor is that North Texas will actually, mind you, one of the youngest clubs in MLS Next Pro. The rumor is that because of the talent influx to the academy, that they will lean more to the academy next year. So we're talking less guys coming in on loan from the South American academies and stuff like we've been seeing. Not to say they're going to stop, but I'm saying you're going to see more academy kids get minutes next year because the talent level in the academy has seen a bump across the board, and you're seeing FC Dallas, now that the territories have opened up a little, it's now spreading out its recruiting and going outside the DFW. And why not? I mean, they have a proven record of sending players to Europe, and it's very attractive. Maybe they won't get the top tier guys, but there's so many guys that are, a step or two away from getting to that level that say, hey, I'd be more than happy to go to Dallas and take that next step there. And you're seeing that now. I think we had 3 guys from Solar, like, I'll leave and join. I think they're all playing for the U16s right now, who are crushing people, So that's exciting. And you're seeing North Texas will, I think, be a true U21 team next year, where basically it is what it is. It's the next step for outside the academy. And that's the way it's got to be. And I'm very happy and I'm excited. I hope it's Michelle or one of those guys, that gets the job.
Internal kind of process. I mean, although there is a dark horse candidate, and that is Caleb Porter, who was fired from the Columbus Crew after betting his house on making the playoffs, and he's probably without a house now.
His Crew 2 team did win the Olympics for us.
But anyway, well, that's an aside. But yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. I liked what Coach Pa, in my interaction, I liked him, but I wasn't there, of course, to see in the locker room and see the friction in the background. And so that's the reality for us fans. And so I appreciate, too, I think it's so important that FC Dallas gets this relationship with North Texas right.
Yeah, and I think the way it was explained was done very well by Third Degree, was that he was a very old school, hard-nosed type manager in the practice and in the game, and today's modern players don't all, that's not the way they're taught. So there was friction between players who were okay with the old school drill sergeant style method, and then you've got the new wave, more social interactive players who basically could not get behind that, and it's going to happen,
Yeah, it's going to happen.
There's some team out there that's going to say, hey, we need that level of discipline, we want that guy, and Coach Pa, I mean, I wouldn't worry about him. I think he's going to land strong
Houston.
somewhere.
Probably
no, I don't
not.
think he'll land with Houston.
I don't think he'll land with Houston.
But
he'll probably take a year off.
But you know what? Even if he doesn't land a head coaching job, I could see him landing as the number 2 guy. As the why not? Somebody, let's say whoever gets hired as Columbus says, hey, I want you to be my number 2 guy. I think that's also a very strong possibility for him. There's a rumor that there's an expansion team in the Canadian Football League that is supposedly he's their guy that they want. So that's also a possibility. He can always go back there.
Interesting. All right. Well, good. Well, let's close out the show. It's been a good one, even just Jose and I. We're hoping to have a surprise guest or two, but hey, that's life.
That's okay. It happens.
Yeah, it happens. But what's our prediction going into Monday night? It's a good week of rest for FC Dallas. Marco Farfan, I think, was brought out of the game just precautionary.
Precautionary, yes, precautionary.
Hopefully that holds up. I think Matt Hedges too. I think was perhaps dealing with a little something, but feel really good about about the health of the squad. I hope Kamungo is ready. It'd be great to have him as a late game option if you're pushing for that go-ahead goal.
That's right. FCD. Go FCD. I think my biggest concern was Velasco limped a little there at the end, and
right.
I mean that's what I'm waiting to find out. Is I hope he's not at all in the injury report, because we haven't. There's been a lot of quiet. Nobody's asked, nobody said, and that's my biggest concern. Is Velasco was gimping a little there at the end, and it wasn't like a minor limp. It was like a significant limp. So hopefully he just it was a short tweak and not anything that carries over. All right. Have fun, Javier.
Yeah, I wish I could go. I'm predicting another 2-1 victory for FC Dallas, and because I think Minnesota is going to fight. But I think, as Ben says here, a 2-0 is also not a bad shout.
I think 2-0 is the way to go. I think, but I don't think it's going to be like. I think it's still going to be I believe that second goal is going to come late. I think we're all going to be like holding our breath, and Minnesota will have their moments where we'll be like, oh my God, we're lucky. So I think 2-0 is a solid prediction. I can get behind that. Yeah. Although it won't be like a comfortable 2-0. It'll be like we needed that second goal to put it away at the end.
Yeah, to make it real. Well, good. We got soccer to look forward to. Please check out bigdsoccer.com and this week for pieces about this. I'm hoping to put together a piece about North Texas. Some of the things we talked about, maybe loop you in, Jose and Jack.
I'm down for that. Yeah,
kind of making sense of this of Coach Kah's departure, but also the future, but more importantly, playoff soccer yet to come. And that's what we want to say. Let's go. Vamos. That's right. Franco. Yeah. Let's go. Let's do it. All right. Good night, everybody. Thanks, Jose.
Good night, guys. Yeah, good night, Rep. Good night, everybody.